My name is Timothy. Once this name was more than just a set of sounds. It sounded like a seal. This man keeps his word, this man is a support, this man can lift and carry through the storm. And now it sounds only in the echo of my own walls. In a modest house on the outskirts of town, where even the paint on the doors is peeling like old skin, my name is not spoken aloud. Here I am, a silent shadow, an old man with wrinkles and slow movements, an unwanted witness to someone else's life. My children live nearby, but at the same time thousands of kilometers away. Their apartments are in the center, their cars shine in the sun, their voices are filled with haste. And when they, occasionally, cross my threshold, I see a cold politeness in their eyes. They look through me as if I were a chair or a lamp. They think I don't notice. But I see every wrinkle on their faces, every crease that appears when they suppress their impatience. Grandchildren. I'm even more of a stranger to them. On their phones, the world is more important than my quiet "How are you?" They don't answer questions, they just shrug, sliding their fingers across the screen. I'm not in their conversations, in their future. I'm an artifact, a museum piece that just happens to still be breathing. I go to the store, the cashier looks away. People in line sigh if I take too long looking for change. In the hospital, I ask the doctor to listen to my pain, but he's already looking at his watch, looking for the next patient whose youth can be used and my years written off. In their eyes, I'm nothing more than spent material, a rusty mechanism that hasn't stopped yet but is no longer needed. Day after day, I sit by the window. My hands tremble as I hold the cup, and I watch life pass by on the street. People laugh, hurry, build. And I watch silently. My silence becomes rotten. At first it was just a feeling of slight resentment, but every day it grows like a dark root in my chest. I don't sleep at night. I hear the wind shaking the trees, and I feel that something inside me is also shaking, cracking. I remember how my word was once law for the family, how in the meeting room my name was spoken with respect. And now, when I go out into the street and no one even looks back, something inside me rots, dies. I write in an old notebook, the remains of the pen make crooked letters. There I note every look, every gesture. No, not to complain. No one listens to the complaints of old people. I write to remember. Because even if they forget, I won't forget. Sometimes it seems to me that my heart is a dark basement. The door is still closed, but I hear something stirring there. The silence is no longer peaceful, it becomes thick, heavy. Sometimes I catch myself thinking that I want them to feel at least a crumb of what I feel. This emptiness, this cold, this silence that sharpens like acid. I smile when my grandson turns away in irritation, because he knows the old man is asking something again. I smile, but not with joy. I feel something new awakening in me. No, old. Very old. Something that I have hidden for a long time under the mask of gentleness. Because I am still here. And I am still looking. I often sit in my chair as darkness covers the town and let memories tear me apart from the inside. People think that old age is about forgetfulness, blurred images, and confusion. But that's a lie. An old person's memory is not a weakness, it's a weapon. I remember everything. Every loss, every victory, every drop of sweat that fell to the floor in those offices where I built myself from scratch. I see my younger self, my shirt wrinkled from sleepless nights, my eyes burning when I faced a task that others called impossible. I never looked for the easy way out. I fought for my business, for every client, for every deal. Back then, people shook my hand with respect, my word was a guarantee, my actions were an example. I had no right to be weak. I was the one who led. I remember how, in the dark years, when the crisis broke many, I stayed on my feet. I sold my own things to pay the salaries of those who worked with me. I sacrificed sleep and health so that my company would stay alive. And it survived. And with it, my family survived. I gave my children everything that I was deprived of: education, opportunities, a roof over my head, confidence in the future. But now they don't even remember who I was. In their eyes, I'm just an old man who speaks too slowly and is stuck in the past. They don't see that my past is their present. What they have grew out of my sweat, my sacrifices, my blood. And they turn away. My hands still remember the cold of metal and the warmth of money. They remember the contracts signed when I left the hall and people stood up to shake Timothy's hand. And now those same hands are shaking when I try to lift a mug of tea. And instead of admiration, I see only irritated looks, saying, "You can't do it on your own anymore, rest, don't bother me." I also remember personal battles. My wife. She was the light that kept me going. She believed in me, even when I doubted myself. She's gone, and the world has become cold without her. When she died, I gave myself even more to my children, work, and family. I became the one who had to hold everything together. And it seemed to me that I had succeeded. And now, I see that this entire foundation for which I sacrificed myself has crumbled. The children who should have been my support have become indifferent spectators. They look at me not as a father, but as a burden. I remember how we once sat at the same table, laughter, conversations, plans for the future. And today, when I invite them to dinner, they find excuses. No time, work, things to do. They don't see how I'm slowly rotting in this loneliness. And maybe they don't care. My past is dust on old photographs for them. But for me it lives. It whispers to me at night, reminds me that I was different. Strong. Tough. A person to be reckoned with. Sometimes I look in the mirror and see not an old man with wrinkles, but the same man with a cold gaze who once broke down barriers without blinking. I know that the same strength still burns in me. It has fallen asleep, but it has not died. And every time I see contempt, hear mockery, or indifference, this power awakens for a moment. My memories don't let me forget who I was. And maybe they remind me of who I can still become. The past is not a burden. It's a weapon. And I think more and more often, isn't it time to bring it out of the darkness? Every day I live with small defeats that eat away at me more slowly and insidiously than any disease. No one sees it. They think, the old man is grumbling, the old man is too sensitive. But I see and remember everything. My son rarely calls me, and his voice always sounds like he's talking to a colleague who needs to be quickly disposed of. No warmth. Yes, Dad, I'm busy. Yes, everything's fine. Okay, let's talk some other time. There's no other time. My daughter has her successes, her photos in the newspapers, her interviews on television. And when I try to share something that worries me, she just nods like an actress who has long since learned the role of indifference. And my grandson, he's the cruelest, because he still has youth in him, and therefore honesty. And this honesty cuts like a knife. Grandpa, you're already confused. You don't understand the modern world. Come on, you better shut up. He says it directly, without hesitation. His words are cold and sharp. They leave scars. Sometimes I think it would be better if he just kept quiet. Because silence is something that can still be tolerated. And direct humiliation is a fatal blow. The doctor I saw recently didn't even look me in the eye. His hands quickly flipped through papers, he asked questions without waiting for answers. And when I dared to say about the pain that cuts me at night, he shrugged. At your age, it's normal. At my age. There was a condescending, "You're almost not human," tone in his voice. I left the hospital, and the world around me seemed colder than ever. I go to the store. My fingers search for coins in my wallet for a long time. I feel the eyes of the line on me. People sigh, someone even says, "I wish I had stayed home if I'm so slow." I listen silently. And these words, like stones, fall into my inner bag of resentment. It becomes heavier every day. And at home, only silence awaits me. Silence that is not even interrupted by the TV. In this silence, I hear my breathing and the steps of time. I sit down at the table, open an old diary. It used to be for business ideas, for plans, for strategies. And now it is a list of pain. I write down names, dates, situations. Everyone who touched me with indifference, everyone who threw a harsh word, who turned away when I needed help. These are not just memories, they are evidence. My archive of suffering. I write. Son. March 12th. Said he didn't have time. Ended the call without saying goodbye. Daughter. April 7th. Listened without listening. Smiled blankly. Grandson. May 15th. Told me to be silent because I don't understand anything. Doctor. June 1st. Wrote my aches down to old age. Shop. June 23rd. The line mocked me for being slow. The pages fill up. And every time the ink touches the paper, I feel a strange sense of relief. As if I'm not letting these things go. They stay with me, and I won't let them fade. Sometimes I reread this diary, and it seems to me that it wasn't me who experienced these scenes, but some other man. But then I touch the wrinkles on my skin and realize, yes, it happened to me. This is my reality. These are my defeats, my little deaths. But each death gives birth to something new. Not only pain, but also determination grows inside me. I'm still silent. I'm not acting yet. But I already know, this diary will not become just an old man's notebook. It will be a script. And someday I will realize it. Because every insult deserves a response. That day the sun was too bright, as if it were deliberately trying to mock my shadow. I was returning from the store carrying 2 bags. There was nothing special in them: bread, milk, a few apples. Simple things needed for survival. My fingers ached from the weight, but I still held the bags as if they were my last dignity. At the intersection, I felt my hands grow weak. The bags slipped from my fingers, and the groceries scattered across the asphalt. The bread fell into the dust, the apples rolled along the road. I bent down, trying to pick them up, but my back responded with a sharp pain. I looked up and saw people. They were walking by. Some even stopped, not to help, but to laugh. "Old man, did you fall?" someone asked. "Grandpa should be sitting at home, and he's hobbling around the city," another added, and the crowd laughed. Their laughter cut like a blade. I felt my face burning, my hands shaking. I tried to say, "Please help," but my voice broke. And it was this weakness, this sound that sounded like a plea, that fueled their contempt even more. One of the young people deliberately stepped on one of the apples, crushed it under his sneaker, as if to demonstrate, "This is what your life looks like, old man." At that moment, the world before my eyes blurred. Not from tears, from something else. As if a door had opened inside me that I had kept closed for a long time. I felt not pain in my chest, but cold. Deep, ruthless cold. There was no room for pity in it. I looked up at them and perhaps, for the first time in many years, my gaze was real. I saw them through and through, weak, thoughtless, angry in their youth. They laughed because they did not know that laughter could sometimes be the last. I picked up the packages slowly, leaving the crushed apple on the road. And I walked home, silently, without looking back. Their laughter still rang in my ears, but now it didn't hurt. It no longer had power. Because at that moment something changed in me forever. At home, silence greeted me, as it always did. But now it wasn't an empty silence. It was filled. Filled with anger, determination, and cold clarity. I sat down at the table, opened my diary, and stared for a long time at the pages where names and dates were written. And then I wrote a new phrase. "Today I was born again." My hands no longer trembled. They became firm, like they had once been when I signed contracts. I understood. I was no longer a victim. I was a player. And this game would be my last, but my greatest. From then on, every sound in my house was perceived differently. The ticking of the clock is not a reminder of old age, but a countdown to the moment when I will act. The patter of rain on the roof is not melancholy, but the music of expectation. Even my own breathing has become a signal. I am still alive, and therefore capable. I sat in the darkness and felt my former strength speak to me. It did not shout, it whispered. "Now is your time. And I agreed. I will ask no more. I will plead no more. I will no longer allow anyone to laugh at my fall. From now on, everyone who has ever despised me will see their reflection in the mirror that I hold up before them. They do not know it yet, but their destinies have already changed. Because I woke up. And the game begins. That night I lay awake. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling a new world unfold inside me. I was no longer the old, abandoned man. I had become a silence that knew its own power. A silence that could break any scream. I opened my diary again. The pages were filled with names, dates, and fragments of humiliation. But now I saw them not just as notes, but as a map. Each insult was a dot to be connected. And as I connected them in my mind, a scheme emerged before me. A plan. A game. I remembered old acquaintances, those who had once been called partners, but who were actually soldiers of my will. Some were still alive, some still working in the shadows. People for whom the word manipulation meant not dirt but art. I had once been their teacher. Now it was time to open the door again. I remembered the phone numbers. They are deeply etched in my memory. And even if not everyone responds yet, a few are enough for me. I don't ask for help. I offer a game. And no one refuses a game if the stakes are high enough. My revenge won't be bloody. I'm too smart for that. A punch leaves bruises that heal. My blow will be different, psychological. They won't even immediately understand that all this is me. Each of those who humiliated me will get their reflection in a mirror where there will be no falsehood. I started with the children. Their weakness is obvious. The son is a slave to his own work. He builds a career on the fragile trust of his superiors, and I know all his secrets. One word in the right ear and his name will be erased from the office door. I won't destroy him, he will fall himself, but I will only push him. Daughter. Her fame rests on reputation. And reputation is the thinnest ice. I found old documents that she had sent me once with a request to keep. I kept them. Now they will be the key. One leak, one letter, and she will feel the ground beneath her feet becoming brittle. And the grandson. He thinks that modern technology makes him invincible. But I know his secrets. I saw his correspondence by chance when he forgot his phone at my house. He bullied others, lied. If these words end up in the right hands, he will lose not only his friends, but also the confidence that holds him proudly. And the doctor. He said that my pain is normal. I will find a way for him to experience for himself what it means to be ignored. I know who to call, so that checks can begin at his clinic. So that he feels that his word no longer counts. None of this will look like a direct attack. No. It will be a series of coincidences. Random quarrels. Coincidences. Unfortunate coincidences. But behind each of them I will stand. And no one will guess. Because who will suspect an old, forgotten grandfather sitting in his house on the outskirts of the town? I sit in a chair and feel my old strength returning. Not physical, intellectual. The cold calculation that made me invincible. Once I built a business. Now I am building a plan of payment. And every brick of it is a humiliation that they gave me. I no longer wait for them to remember me. I will remind myself of myself. But not with words. Their own actions will become my tool. I will remain in the shadows, but my shadows will fall on each of them. Now my diary is not just a list of pain. It is a playbook. And I am its author. When it all started, I wanted only one thing, to be noticed. For someone to look me in the eye, not with pity or impatience, but with respect. I didn't ask for much, conversation, understanding, sometimes just presence. Instead, they gave me indifference that hurt deeper than any physical injury. And I responded in the way I know how best, cold, selective, and ruthless, not to break lives, but to illuminate the truth in them that they were trying to hide under the mask of normal life. The first coincidences were subtle, barely noticeable, like a light cold seeping through clothes. My son began to receive strange letters, unknown calls at the wrong time. His work project, which he considered unshakable, suddenly suffered small but consistent blows. Clients who were supposed to sign contracts disappeared, meetings were postponed, and his image in the company was quietly eroded. People asked why his eyes had lost that confident sparkle. He didn't understand where the wind was coming from. He thought it was just a setback. But each setback was a carefully planted crumb of truth, and like a fungus, it spread where the foundation used to be. His daughter received a gift, in the form of a document that had drowned in the internet. A small inattention, a photograph where, in the shade of a word, something was visible that was better left hidden. Conversations in her circle became a squall. People who had previously applauded her in public began to whisper in the corridors. She tried to remove these traces, but each action only dragged her further into the information vortex. The reputation on which she had built her success began to crack, not from external pressure, but from the fact that truth, like crystal, has the property of cutting those who stand on it. Her grandson found himself in a situation where his coolness was trampled by his own words. Former friends turned away when evidence of his falsehood emerged, correspondence, broken promises, mockery directed at the weaker. He was left not just scandalously shattered, he felt an emptiness he had not noticed before. His youthful pride turned to shame, and shame to a silence hidden in his gaze. The doctor who had once ignored my pain felt his own walls begin to crack. Checks, minor errors in documents, questions from colleagues who had once respected him, all this piled up like snow that suddenly gives way to an avalanche. He finally stopped sleeping when his impeccable reputation became the subject of conversation. And in that sleepless silence, he realized, his words no longer carried the weight they had once held. Yes, I had made them feel it, with intelligence, with grace, with the manipulation of a fact they had not noticed before. They quarreled among themselves. Small conflicts, well-thought-out reasons, hints in the right ears, and the family began to fall apart, not instantly, but surely. Expected calls did not come, meetings were disrupted, trust crumbled. I remained in the shadows, watching the journey of their lives through the mirror that I placed before them. The mirror did not show images, it showed the truth. And the truth, as a rule, is deadly unpleasant for those who are used to living in masks. I didn't need their screams. Screaming is weakness, a sick desire to be heard. I wanted them to hear themselves. I wanted them to feel the longing and emptiness they had given me for years. My pleasure was not in destruction, but in awakening, in that painful awakening when a person sees the consequences of his indifference. And when the consequences came, they came not as an accident, but as a sentence in which there is no place for tears of justification. The world around me was gradually changing. The neighbors who had previously turned their heads away when I passed by now looked at me differently out of the corner of their eyes. Their gazes were no longer inattentive, they were searching for the strength in me that they had previously ignored. The respect was no longer in volume, but its tone had become different, quiet, cautious. They saw that in the old man they had refused, there was the ability to play a game that could break the seemingly unchanging order of life. And this fact made them think, maybe old age doesn't always mean weakness? When everything calmed down, when the wave passed, no one applauded. My children didn't come to me with tears of apology. Their faces were darkened by excuses. They were learning to look in the mirror again, and doing it painfully. My grandson stood aside, his lips pursed. The doctor was careful with his words when we happened to meet in the hallway. They felt the power they had once rejected and learned to respect it, not out of love but out of caution. And me? I am not a saint. I did not celebrate their downfall. My revenge did not bring me joy in the form of a triumphant cry. Instead, another state settled in my soul, a silence, heavy as a stone, but pure. It was the silence of a person who had defended his right to dignity. I learned not to forgive as weakness and not to destroy as admiration. I learned to create lessons that are painful to learn from, but which have a chance to change behavior. In the evening, I sat down at the table again and opened my diary. The pages that had once been filled with pain and names now had a different value. They were my answer to forgetting. I ran my pen across the blank sheet and wrote a final entry, short but loud for myself. It was not a threat or a request. It was a shared wisdom I had given myself at the end of this journey. The last entry in the diary was: do not be afraid of being old. Be afraid only when your dignity is worth less than yourself. I closed the notebook, stroked its cover, and felt something I had long forgotten: peace. Not victorious, not triumphant. The peace of a person who has reclaimed his name and his place, even if the price was a painful lesson for others. And in this silence I understood another thing. The power of old age is not in breaking, but in demanding respect. No matter what anyone says, this right is worth fighting for.
Subscribe and like. And tell your friends about this video.